Okay, hello, amazing artists. It's Kelly Folsom here, and I want to welcome you back to another Art Life Conversations podcast where we talk about all things related to being an artist and living this amazing and sometimes challenging art life. So, this is part three of our series called Why the Real Reason Why You're Not Painting and What to Do About it. So if you've missed the first two, I recommend you go back and listen to those. I'm basically trying to go kind of in order of diagnosis, right? Like here would be the number one thing, the number one reason I've experienced and what I've seen, coaching and mentoring and teaching so many other artists throughout the years. And so we're in part three now. And so I'm looking at my notes here because the first part, and we're going to cover again two areas, right? Two reasons why, the real reasons why you're not painting. And so the first one is you don't have clarity on when you are going to create. So I always say this, like, if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to get done, right? So you don't have clarity for when you're going to create, and it has not become a regular habit and a regular routine for you to make your art. Okay, so you just want to look at, like, are you creating art regularly? Have you made space in your schedule? Talked about physical space last week. This week we're talking about time space, right? Have you made space in your schedule for you to create? Or are you just winging it, right? Are you just kind of doing it whenever you feel like you have spare time, whenever you feel like it, which is probably not going to be very often, which a lot of times makes people think, oh, well, maybe I just don't really want to do this. No, like I love how Mel Robbins talks about that. Like you're probably not going to feel like doing it most of the time because creating art is challenging and it really is a matter of creating a new habit. And even if it's something that we want to do, we all know as human beings that that is a really big challenge for all of us. Like, it's not like any of us are these, habit ninja warriors that just, man, I can build a new habit like that. Even the best of the best, I think, find it really challenging to change up your routine or to add in a new habit. And so that's really the next piece that you want to look at. Are you just winging it because you think that that makes you creative? Are you waiting to feel like it or feel quote unquote inspired? If that's the case, I'm sorry, but you're probably not going to feel inspired. Like that quote says, it is really true that once you start working, usually inspiration comes. Not always, though, but usually it does show up. Inspiration has to find you working, right? So you've got to show up, you've got to do the thing. So if you are going to be an artist and you're going to create work, you got to figure out with your current life, your current lifestyle, your current routine, how is that going to plug into your life time wise? If you're working a job, when are you going to do this? And do you, if like, let's say maybe you have a routine where you're doing it one day a week. Like maybe you've been reserving it for the weekends or for your day off or for, like I said in the first podcast I did on this topic, maybe you're only creating whenever you go out of your home and go to a class or something. And is that really enough? One thing I know about making art is that repetition is key, right? Getting enough practice in, getting enough, I call it brush mileage, getting enough brush mileage in order to actually see growth and get better. And I know one thing that's really challenging is whenever we don't see Whenever you don't see progress, you don't see growth, then you wonder, why am I even doing this? So if you're not doing it enough, then that's going to be an issue, right? Because you're not going to see enough progress, because you're not building any momentum, any consistency. Okay. And then you're going to do it less and less or more sporadically. And you are kind of just wasting your time, unless you're just genuinely cool with, like, hey, I'm just doing this whenever I feel like it, and that's enough for me. And if that's the case, then that's great. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people who want to be progressing, want to be growing in their art more, and you're not. And you're not creating, and maybe you just have no idea why. So that's what we're doing here. It's what we're talking about. So you have to do it frequently enough, right? So frequency, consistency of how often you're doing it is really important if you want to grow, if you want to become, a master, painter or master sculptor, or get so good at your pottery, or whatever the case may be, you've got to do it consistently enough. And that requires creating a new habit and making space in that schedule. So I want you to start to track your time. I would say, if you know that this is your issue and that this is one of the things that's really holding you back, start noticing, what are you doing with your extra time? What are you doing with your days? What is your current routine like? What are your current habits like? Just keep track of that, I would say, for like a week. And then pay attention to, when is it that I have time to create? And then sometimes too, people are saving their art. You might be saving your art making and trying to squeeze it in wherever it will fit in. And then whenever you get there, you're tired. You've made 500 million decisions today. So you've got no brain power left. You've got no energy left. You're certainly not going to feel inspired, so it is another problem. So I recommend you do look at tracking your time. Where is your time currently going? What are you doing with the 24 hours a day that you have? And when are you creating? And also, when would be the most ideal time for you to create? Like, if you are a morning person, it's probably going to be easier for you to get up 1 hour earlier in the morning for you to create than to try to wait until you get off work, or to, whatever the case may be, till you get done cleaning the house, you go do the grocery shopping, you go do all the things, right? And then you come back and you expect yourself to create. It's not going to happen. Like, it's just not going to happen. So you have to know yourself too. And if it does happen, you're probably, not going to really perform all that great, because you're kind of saving this very challenging thing for a time of day when you are depleted on your energy and your focus and your willpower, right? So you want to know yourself, like, know who you are. If you're a night owl, that's probably doing it at night, whenever everybody goes to bed, and, and that's your time, and it's easier for you, for whatever reason, that's, how you operate. For a morning person, you're going to want to do it in the morning as soon as possible. If you have a ton on your plate, you've got a ton of obligations, you've got a ton of other things to deal with during the day, and you're a morning person, I recommend that it be the very first thing that you do after waking up. So sometimes in my mentorship program, I actually recommend to some people, depending on, how they are, I'll actually, kind of recommend to some people, like, set your alarm clock early, get up early, don't, like, have your coffee and then get straight to the studio and start working. try to put it first, even if it's an hour, even if it's 30 minutes. And for me as a morning person, this really helped me. One thing I did for a long time was I did a daily mini painting every morning. And then I would set myself up for success to create that habit. So I would set my stuff up the night before. I would set out what I was going to paint, the night before I went to bed. And then as soon as I would get up and have my coffee, I would turn on the music or the radio or a podcast or something, and I would start my painting. I'd set a timer for an hour, and that made me feel so accomplished, right? And it helped me grow my confidence so much. And it was before anything else got going in the day, before emails, before phone calls, before breakfast with my partner, right? It set the tone of my day. And that was a time period in my life when I really needed to do that. And I needed to keep that momentum and that consistency going. So you have to know who you are, know when your best energy is, when your best focus is. Please don't save it for last. You're going to be so sorry you're going to regret that if you do that. And it's also like too much to expect of yourself. If you think that after all day of like taking care of the house, taking care of the husband, taking care of kids, that at the end of the day, you're going to feel like creating, or, you're going to work and coming home. If you think that you're going to feel like creating at the end of the day, you're probably not, Now, I'm not saying that you can't find a way, to make that work if you've got no other option. But I would recommend like put first things first, right? There's kind of that saying about eat the frog, kind of do the most important thing first. And it's also a way of demonstrating to yourself that it is important to you. Okay, number 2 is that you don't have any goals, right? Like you don't know, why am I doing this? Where am I going with this? It's kind of like whenever you're dating, and you say, where is this relationship headed? Where is this relationship going? Is there a future here? Is there enough future here for me to keep investing myself into it? And so that's another thing to look at if you find yourself not painting, not creating your art, and you don't know why. You just might not have clarity on anything that you're working towards. And so sometimes that can be as simple as, you're trying to get into galleries, or you're trying to build a resume, or you want to have a solo show, or you want to sell your art. You have to find a reason to do this, especially if you don't need to do it for money, right? If it's not actually like a career choice for you, like it was for me, you're going to have to find your reason. Where are you going with this? What do you want out of this? Right? Because if you're just showing up and painting and you don't know why, other for the sake of like creating, the sake of painting, and that's such a romantic idea. I know it sounds really lovely and really pretty and very, Van Gogh. But the truth of the matter is, for most of us, that is not going to work. That's not going to work for most of us. Most of us, we have got to know the purpose of why we're doing something. For most of us, it's not going to be enough to say like, oh, I just feel like doing this thing, we have to know like, well, why am I doing this? Who is it helping? Who, by me doing this painting or making this art, like, what is it contributing? What's it contributing to my family, maybe to my household, maybe to my community? Why am I doing this? And also, I think that's where goals really come in. And goals can be identifying something that you want, and you can set a goal towards is so helpful. If you don't have any goals, you might have a goal to grow your YouTube channel or start a YouTube channel and grow it. You might, like I say, you might have a goal to start selling your artwork and boost your income in your household. What are you going to do with that money? How good is it going to feel if you can make X amount of dollars, to take a trip to Paris this, fall, or to contribute to your child's, education fund, whatever the case may be. It's going to be different for everybody, but you've got to figure out, get clear on, where is this going and what is the purpose of me doing this beyond me just making this art. Obviously, there's a very strong drive for human beings to create things, right? To create objects, to express themselves, to develop a skill set, right? All of us have this drive and this desire to do things like that. And we do get a lot out of it. Like every time I paint, I do get a lot out of it personally for myself. I'm not always inspired when I first start painting, but my God, I'm usually super inspired by the time I'm done painting. And I'm so thankful that I got to have this beautiful experience of, it's like a soul expression, right? So that does feel good. I'm not saying it doesn't. And I also want to say, it does not feel like that 100% of the time. It's kind of like being in a committed relationship. Some days it feels like, wow, this is so incredible. And then other days are just off days and challenging. So you're going to have that up and down, that ebb and flow. But beyond, there's got to be something beyond that. If I were just making all of this art and it was just stacking up in my studio, well, at this point, there would be thousands of paintings, stacked up with nowhere to go, right? And that is a depressing thing for an artist, because an artist must have an audience. And now we're kind of getting into the next the next podcast, so I'm going to stop it there. All right, my friends, if this has been helpful to you, if this has kind of given you some ideas of like, oh my gosh, that's what has been going on with me, leave me a comment below. Let me know what is resonating with you. And also, if nothing I've mentioned yet has really resonated with you, let me know why it is that you think you're not creating, in the comments below. Or you can send an email to info@artlifewithkelly.com. All right. Much love, everybody. I'm wishing you the most abundant, joyful, most fulfilling art life ever. I want that for all of you, for all of us, myself included, and we get to have that if we choose that. So I will see you next week for a continuation on this topic, and wishing you all happy painting. Bye for now.